Most people don't realize until it's too late that their real estate agent isn't working with their best interests at heart, or simply doesn't have the skills to get the job done. Now, this kind of mistake can cost you thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars, and potentially the home that you love. I can't tell you the number of calls I get every year from people in the middle of a real estate transaction that's gone completely sideways, down to the actions of one agent or the other. And it can be very hard to fix it at that point. So in this video, I'm gonna give you 5 red flags that you can use to see if you've hired the wrong agent or not, so we can hopefully save you from this kind of expensive and painful mistake. Now, it isn't coming upon me to say right up front that most people in my business are excellent. They are professional, they're deeply committed to their clients, and they do a really great job. But like any industry, there are bad people in it, and there are people who just aren't very good at it. Now, most of the problems in my industry come down to this statistic right here, which is that 87% of people in real estate will fail within the first 5 years. That's a massive attrition rate. Think of the worst industry you can think of, restaurants. They have a 75% attrition rate. It is harder to be a successful realtor than to open a successful restaurant. So if you're working with someone who's been in the business less than 5 years, chances are they're not going to be in the business very much longer, and they don't have the skills necessary to help you navigate the challenging waters of a real estate transaction. So the first thing you can do is always make sure you're working with someone who's been in the business 10 years or more. Now, let's jump right into the 5 red flags you can use to make sure you haven't hired the wrong person. Red flag number 1 is that they use platitudes and snappy aphorisms instead of real, seasoned, hard-won real estate advice. Look, if you're working with someone and they're talking about the interest rate environment and they say things like, marry the house, date the rate, right? Instead of giving you a nuanced look at what's going on with today's interest rates and how that affects you, you're working with the wrong person. If they ever get out a piece of paper and draw out how many, lattes you can skip a month and afford this house, you're working with the wrong person. If they can't answer your questions and give you a detailed and nuanced answer that is specific to you and your situation, then they are not the realtor that you want to work with. Look, back in 2022, when the interest rates shifted and they went huge and up to 8%, we had a ton of people in my industry saying that marry the house, date the rate business. Well, here we are in August of 2025, and the interest rates really haven't come down all that much. So all those clients that they convince, go ahead, buy the house, it'll be fine, interest rates will come down next year, no big deal. Well, those people got royally hosed by that advice. There is no blanket real estate advice that is good advice. Real estate is hyper-local and hyper-personal, and these snappy aphorisms and little platitudes and cliches don't help anyone. And if somebody's falling back on those and relying on those, it's because they actually don't know what they're talking about. So when people start slinging this kind of language around, it's a big red flag. Move on and find somebody else. Before we dive into red flag number 2, you might be wondering who I am and why you should be listening to me about real estate or anything at all, really, and it's a pretty fair question. My name is Rich Curtis with eXp Realty, and I've been selling homes here in the foothills of California for over 20 years now, in markets ranging from the Great Recession to the COVID market insanity and everything in between. So when it comes to real estate, I've got you covered. And in those 21 years, I've had the privilege to work with some amazing agents and a fair few not so good ones. So when it comes to this video specifically, I can spot a bad agent from a mile away. So follow these 5 red flags, especially number 5, and it'll save you a lot of time, money, and heartache. So let's get right into number 2. Red flag number 2, and this is an easy one. They try to push your price range. Look, this is always a red flag, but let me make a clear distinction between trying to set a realistic market expectation for what you can get for your money and pushing your price range. There's a difference between you coming to me and saying, I want to buy a $300,000 house in Placerville, and me saying the median price in Placerville is $530,000 right now, and you probably can't get much of anything at the $300,000 range, and you need to buy the property with a loan, and you're definitely not going to get a property in a condition that you can get a loan on it in the $300,000 range. So that's probably not going to work out for you. That is giving someone a realistic expectation and a good education on what's happening in the marketplace. So if your agent is doing that, that's a good sign. They're trying to help you get realistic, and it may be that you need to save a little more before you come back and buy a house, or it may be that you need to look at a different community because you just can't afford the one you're talking about. That's different than pushing your price. What I'm talking about is you start working with an agent, you tell them, hey, I've talked to a lender, I know my max payment comfort and everything, and I don't want to buy more than a $500,000 house. You get in the car, you meet this agent, you go start looking at houses, and they show you a house that's beautiful and you fall in love with it, and they say, oh, it's 550 grand or it's 600 grand. That is pushing price range. That is not okay. That is not good best practices, and it doesn't have your best interest at heart. And here's why. The difference between a $500,000 and a $550,000 house can be massive. The difference between a $500,000 house and a $600,000 house in my market is considerable, especially when it comes to interior fit and finish. And for the vast majority of you, the ones who aren't on the ragged edge of affordability, you usually can qualify for a bigger loan than you want to have, meaning on paper, you might be able to get a loan for a $700,000 house. But based on your payment comfort, what you can comfortably afford or want to take on, you're really shopping at a $500,000 house. If I show you a $600,000 house, it's going to be so much better than the $500,000 houses that you are going to convince yourself to make a bad decision. Now, I've seen this 100 times over with my clients that push their own price ranges. So as a business rule, I will never show someone a home that is above their price range. But occasionally clients send me one that's above their price range and say, I want to see this. And I'll say, it's above your price range. And they say, yeah, I want to see it anyway. 100% of the time, they have convinced themselves to purchase that more expensive home. Now, luckily, knock on wood, I've never had any of them lose the home or have it be such a financial burden on them that it worked out badly. But that being said, they still convince themselves to spend more money and take on a bigger payment than they intended to at the outset because they went and looked at that more expensive home. Now, if you make that decision, you send your agent a home that's out of your price range and they show it to you, no big deal, no harm, no foul. But if your agent is showing you homes that are out of your price range, if they're consistently showing you homes that are out of your price range, and especially if on the very first tour, when you go out and you haven't looked at any houses, you haven't gotten an education, you haven't really seen what you get for your money in the marketplace, they put a house on that tour that is outside of your price range, that person is trying to push price, and that is not having your best interests at heart, and that is a good reason to stop working with them and go find somebody who's going to respect your financial limits, especially in this kind of market in California right now where we have record high prices, and although not historically high interest rates, for recent times, high interest rates. Affordability is a big deal, and to have someone right from the outset start pushing you into higher price brackets, that is not a good idea. That doesn't give you the financial freeboard to weather the storm if you lose a job or if you have other life problems like medical problems that come up that cost you a bunch of money. That is someone pushing you into bad financial decision making. And you should be hiring a realtor to help you do two things: negotiate aggressively on your behalf and help you make the best and highest quality real estate decisions you can. And pushing your price doesn't qualify as one of those. So if someone does this to you, bounce and go find somebody else. If you've made it this far and you're getting anything at all out of the video, hit the like button, click subscribe, and click that little bell icon so you don't miss another video with crucial information to help you on your real estate journey. My goal with this channel is to help you make the highest quality real estate decisions you can from the comfort of your couch. So you don't want to miss any of this quality content. Now, to that end, let's jump right back into our list of 5 red flags that you can use to make sure you haven't hired the wrong agent. Red flag number 3 to know if you've hired the wrong agent or not is that they don't know their numbers. Now look, an agent shouldn't know the exact market value of every house you look at. If we do a tour and I show you 5 or 6 houses and you pick one that's your home of choice, you say, "Ooh, I think they're a little overpriced. What do you think?" I'm going to tell you, I'm going to go back to the computer, I'm going to comp this exact house and get back to you with a real data supported answer to that question. That's not what I mean by knowing the numbers. Knowing the numbers is they should know what the median home price is. You heard me earlier in this video saying right now as I'm recording this video in August, September of 2025, we're looking at around $530,000 for the median home price in the greater Placerville area. We're looking at about a 60 days on market. We are seeing a lot of delistings. In fact, over the course of the summer, we had, for every one house that came to market, we had about 6 or 7 houses coming off the market in our local markets. They should know those kind of numbers. Now, why? You could say, just like the house example I used, they can just go back to the computer and give me that information. Well, look, there's maybe 100, 150 houses in my area for sale right now. I can't have comped everyone and be keeping up in the old squirrel cage here the exact market value for each one. But what I can be checking regularly on the daily, so I'm doing the best job for you, is all those macro numbers so that I understand the landscape in which we are placing these homes. The value of the homes is also dictated by what's going on at the macro level. And your ability to offer less or to negotiate is going to be based on what's going on at the macro level in our market. And if your agent doesn't know those basic numbers, I mean, these are not heavy lifts. Within about 3 button clicks on the MLS, they can get a little chart that will show them these numbers. You don't even have to hand calculate them, although I often do hand calculate inventory on the day so I can see what's going on directly right then when I'm looking to list a property. But either way, your agent should know these very basic numbers. Now, even better, they should also understand what's going on at the 30,000 foot level. What's going on with the Federal Reserve? What's going on with mortgage-backed securities? What's going on with interest rates? What's likely to happen? What's going on with downward price pressure in 2025 here? And what do they think is going to continue to happen nationally and in your market more specifically? And most importantly, you should be working with someone who is informed, who is engaged in the daily act of staying up on these numbers so they can be the absolute best advocate for you and your real estate purchase possible. If they don't know the basic numbers, if you ask them and they flub the answer, they don't really know, you think they're BSing you, just bounce. If you throw a stone in your town, you'll hit 6 realtors. And that's a conservative number, there's no reason to bother working with someone who doesn't know what they're doing and doesn't even take the basic time to keep up on what's going on in the real estate market. There's a huge red flag. If you see this one, just bounce and go get somebody else to help you out. Red flag number 4 to know that you've hired the wrong agent is that they are a poor communicator. Look, transactions die with bad communication. We need to be in constant communication with all parties, and it's a lot to juggle. I'm not kidding. What I really am as a realtor is a professional cat herder. If I'm on the buyer side, I'm staying in contact with the buyer. I'm staying in contact with the seller's agent to keep them updated. I'm keeping contact with the buyer's lender, with their insurance agent, with all of their inspectors. And that might be a home inspector, a roof inspector, a septic inspector, a well inspector, a chimney inspector, an HVAC inspector, a sewer lateral inspector. Maybe if someone's even more concerned about other issues, that could be a mold inspector, an indoor air quality inspector, radon inspector. It's a lot to keep track of. It's a lot of communication. It's talking to the title company. We're in constant communications, and we are your port of call to keep you updated on everything that's going on in your real estate transaction. You should really be communicating on the daily with your agent once you're in contract. When you're in the shopping phase, you can go a few days without talking to your agent. If there's no houses to see, no big deal. You don't really want to work with someone who's sending you a house every day and be like, what about this one? What about this one? You gonna buy a house now? You gonna buy a house now? That's another red flag. You don't want someone who's pestering you during the search phase. But once you're in contract, they should be in constant communication with you and with the other agent. And they should be a good communicator. They shouldn't be someone who flies off the handle easily, gets easily offended. They should be somebody with a high emotional IQ who has a lot of empathy and understanding and can build rapport with people, because it is that personal human capital and rapport that they build with the other agent that you're going to need when it comes time for negotiations, because every transaction doesn't just have one round of negotiations, at least the way it works here in California. Your mileage may vary, it's different across the country, but here 17 days in, we've done all our inspections and we may have another round of negotiations for repairs or credits at that time. And you want somebody who can communicate those things effectively and clearly and in a way that builds rapport and teamwork with the other side so we can get what we need and get you the best deal possible on this house. So if you're working with an agent that ghosts you, that doesn't answer calls or texts in a timely manner, that is you really hard to talk to or getting a little bit chippy with you, that sort of stuff, those are all big red flags. Move on and find somebody else. I will say this though, it is a business where everybody expects their agent to be available at all times of the day, and that's an unrealistic expectation. So I don't start taking phone calls until 9 a.m. after I've dropped my kids off at school. And I don't take phone calls after dinner time in the evening unless we're having some kind of fire to put out in the transaction. That's my family time. But within reasonable working hours and within a reasonable callback or text back time frame, these people should be highly communicative, highly responsive, and getting stuff done. And if they're not with you, you know they're probably doing even worse with the other agent on the other side of the deal, and that's not a good sign. So in the early phases, when you're starting to work with an agent, see if they do what they say. If they say they're gonna set you up on a property search by the end of the day and it takes 2 or 3 days, bad sign. If they say they're gonna text you the information for you to get in contact with their lender so you can get pre-qualified and they don't do it, and you gotta remind them, bad sign, right? If they are slow to communicate right from the jump, it's only going to get worse. From there, bounce and go find somebody who's going to give you the service level that you need and deserve to get through the complicated waters of a real estate transaction. Okay, we have made it now to red flag number 5, and I hope you are all with us here. I hope this video has my highest level of retention ever on YouTube because everybody needs to hear this one. This is the quickest, easiest, and most important way to know right from your very first conversation with an agent whether they've got your best interest at heart or their own. And it's super duper simple. Ask them whether now is a good time to buy or sell, whichever one you are doing, and then wait and listen to their answer. If they say yes right away rather than asking you questions, that is a bad sign. Hang up and go find somebody else. That might sound a little harsh, but let me explain. Real estate, I've said this a million times on this channel, real estate is hyper local and even more importantly, hyper personal. There is no way for me to answer that question. It is the most common question I get, by the way. And on this channel, we do multiple videos trying to give you context, ways to frame your thinking, ways to think about deciding whether now is the right time for you to buy or sell, whether this market is the right market for you to buy or sell, because you can't answer that question in a blanket way. Blanket real estate advice is bad advice. So when someone calls me and says, hey, is now a good time to buy or sell? I say, well, let me find out a few things about you. I'm going to ask them what their goals are, what they're looking to do, how long they're planning to hold this real estate, why they're buying. Are they selling another property? Are they moving from out of town? Are they coming here for a job? Do they have stable employment? What do they make? All of these things go into finding out whether now is the right time for this person to buy or sell. And I got to have a lot more information before I can answer that question for you in a way that is of any value to you. So if you call a real estate agent and you say, hey, is now a good time to buy? And they say, yes, absolutely. Let me get you set up on auto prospecting. I'll start sending you some properties today. That's a bad sign. What they should say is, hey, let's have a conversation. Let me find out a little bit more about you, and then I'll be able to answer that question. Or they may feel overall that the market's pretty good, so they may say, yes, now's a good time to buy, but it might not be for you. Let's have a conversation first. Or yes, now is by the numbers a great time to sell a property, but let's talk about your situation, see if it's the right time for you to sell a property. How close are you to a retirement? Do you have kids going to college soon? Do you have college savings for those kids? Or are you looking to draw upon the house to put kids through college? There are a million different questions that we need to get into. It doesn't take a long time. Inside of a 10 or 15 minute conversation, I can have what I need to then give you tailor-made advice so you can make the best decision for you. And this you can tell in seconds whether someone is trying to sell you or whether someone is trying to learn about you and advise you. And that is the number one way to tell in a couple of seconds whether you've contacted the right agent or not. If you get the, yeah, now's a great time to buy, or yeah, now's a great time to sell. Let's get going. Let's get in the car. Go, go, go. That's a real bad sign. They should be asking a lot of questions about you. They should even be asking questions that on a first call with you, you may feel a little bit awkward and not want to answer. Like, maybe I don't want to tell you how much I make, right? Maybe I just want to tell you a ballpark. You're asking me a lot of questions here, right? But if they're asking you a lot of questions, that means they are doing the due diligence to get the information they need to give you the right advice. And that is the most important thing you need out of any agent. So if I could sum it up for you, the most important 2 things are: make sure you're working with someone who's been in this business over 10 years, and make sure they're asking a lot of questions to give you tailor-made advice. All right, that wraps up our discussion of how to know whether you've hired the wrong agent or not. And I really hope all of you have hired the right agent. Now, if you're in the process of picking an agent, you're in our market, Northern California, El Dorado County, Sacramento County, Placer County, Amador County, Nevada County, I would love to have your business and have the shot at becoming your agent. So feel free to reach out to me via the contact information on your screen or in the description down below. If you're somewhere else in the country and you need help picking a good agent, we have trusted professionals we work with all over the country. So also feel free to reach out via that contact information and we can help line you up with a great person where you are. If you're going it on your own, great, go for it. Use these 5 red flags as your guidepost to make sure you're choosing the right person. And again, most importantly, use those 2. Are they asking you a lot of questions, and have they been in the business for 10 years or longer? If they meet just those 2 requirements, you're probably in pretty good shape. I hope this has helped you pick a real estate agent that's going to do an excellent job for you. Now, maybe you are still wondering whether right now is the right time for you. So you can click this video right here on our whether you should buy now or wait in 2025, or you can click this video right here talking about how a lot of listings have testing prices right now and how you should be responding to those prices. And if you're looking to move into our area, you can always click our town versus town playlist down here to see some of our towns pitted in a head-to-head battle. Either way, I really appreciate you making it to the end with me, and I'll see you on the next one.